This is Marcus Allen, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
So much energy, so much echo. I love it, man. This is fantastic, and we're just waiting on Howard to punch in real quick here, so everybody stand by, and Howard will be here in a moment. But
Exactly.
yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I was checking out your guys' latest project, Ballbuster, and I love. So we won't get too far into this without Howard, but I love that there's room for comedy and levity and sort of mocking in general our overall culture.
Mayhem, shenanigans. I'll do my impression of Howard right now. Honey, did they say it was a Zoom? I can't find them on Zoom. What? That's Howard right now.
Yeah. So we all have a tie to Sacramento. You probably don't know that about me at all because it's not something I talk about very often. But you and Howard and I all have lived or worked in the Sacramento area in our past. Yeah. And then you used to work on a show called Scratch. Is this correct?
Yeah, Scratch was produced out of San Francisco, but also had ties to Sacramento because they used an ABC affiliate here. It was modeled after PM Magazine, but it was for young people. It was me, Jonathan Karsh, and Lisa Ling. Jonathan Karsh is now the vice president of feature film for Lionsgate in development, and Lisa Ling, of course, is internationally regarded journalist, Lisa Ling.
And wasn't there like a dating element? Because I watched this show, and it was like another match made from scratch.
Yeah, my segment was called Dateless and Desperate.
I remember these.
Where essentially, we enabled young people to stalk each other. If they had a crush on someone, they would write a letter, and then we would get in cahoots with everyone in their ecosystem, their friends, family, coworkers, church members, whatever it took to get the two of them together. We would confront the person and say, this person wants to go out with you. And if they said yes, then we awarded them this lovely date package. Another match made in heaven, another match made from scratch.
Yes, I used to watch this show. I used to watch it all the time because back then I was going to college and trying to become a broadcaster myself. And
nice.
I totally remember you on that show. It was, and for the most part, the dates were like, as you might expect. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't, but it was cool.
Yeah, behind the scenes, it used to be a radio bit I did. And if people didn't want to go out, we didn't make them go out. But because there was so much money invested flying us all over the nation at that time to set these people up, we would stop the cameras down and all but coerce the person into, look, just for camera, just for TV, would you say yes? And then the person would say yes. And I'm sure the date never happened. There's no reality to reality television.
Yeah.
And we started the trend.
You did. You guys started the trend. What else did you do in Sacramento back in those early days?
So I came up from LA radio to take a gig on a station called KSFM. They were flipping it into a hip hop R&B station from traditional contemporary hits. And so I came up to do that, was doing this stunt to raise money for MDA where I was living on a highway billboard 24 hours a day. I fell off, broke my legs, and ended up going back up on the thing, and it became a national news story. And so Matt Chan, who was working on this show in San Francisco at the time, called me up and said, hey, want to be on my show, Scratch? And that's how that all came about.
Because you fell off a billboard. But that was back in the billboard camping days, too. That no one does that stunt anymore.
No, I mean, you can't do anything anymore. You'll get sued 12 ways for whatever you do.
Yeah.
Kids these days and their lack of lawsuits. Can't do anything.
So I think the other big question I have, I guess we'll get a little bit into Ballbuster, but we'll wait for Howard, but how the hell did you get a film made right now? Like, was it already in the can or what happened?
Yeah, Howard and I have had the great fortune of, we started working on a movie called Apparition 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. 5 years. Yeah, I think we were in pre-prod 5 years ago. It's a horror suspense thriller with Mina Savari and Kevin Pollak. It went well. Some of the people behind it said, what else you got? And Howard and his other producing partner had worked on a development of a movie called Notorious Nick. A great story. You'll be hearing about this more next year, about an MMA fighter that was born with one arm, but it's a remarkably true story and it's so good. And so we instantly rolled in from Apparition to that. And while we were working on that, the developers said, what else you got? And Howard had this idea in the back of his mind to take some of his stories. He used to travel with the Harlem Globetrotters and had some great road trip stories. And he would spit these at me and say, that's got to be a movie. And so Howard gave birth to Ballbuster. We hashed out the script, largely Howard's words to paper, And that became the movie Ballbuster with Jerry O'Connell. And we made 3 films after that. So all these films are in the can, various stages of post-production. But fortunately, the hardest work is done. They're fully funded and the work is done. They're just in the process of post-production. In the case of Notorious Nick, it's like 387 visual effects shots before it was done. So that was the slowest moving in post-production. The others somewhat quicker. The end result being that we had 5 films about to be finished during a pandemic when people need the content the most.
Yeah, that's crazy. What a stroke of luck for you guys to be that deep into the process.
I hate the pandemic, but I am so blessed that I get to be a part of giving people distraction and something to do during this time.
Hey, doesn't Mark DiCarlo have Sacramento roots as well?
None whatsoever, except that we drug his butt to Sacramento to shoot scenes for Ballbuster. And it went so well. Like I love that guy. Howard's here. Howard! There he is. Hey, buddy.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Hey, everybody. Howard Burd, my producing partner in the aforementioned former Washington General Harlem Globetrotter tour. Howard Burd. Howard, there's Pete. Pete, there's Howard.
Hey, Pete. Nice to meet you.
Mark can't stop hosting shit. He's just going to keep on hosting. I'm just going to sit back and let him do it. It's great.
We were just talking about Mark DiCarlo right when you jumped on, Howard.
I was going to say Marcus Allen has a better studio than most broadcast stations. That's his house.
Yeah, that's crazy. It does look like a broadcast studio.
Let's just say I've always been preparing for the end of the world or the end of my career. Still prepped.
Whichever one it is. I was going to fill the blank in too, Howard. I also have Sacramento roots like you guys. So I used to work at Tower Records on Florin Road.
Oh yeah, on Broadway. On Fulton.
On Florin, down in the bad part of town back then. Okay. But yeah, and actually, bounced around a little bit. But I lived downtown and lived in Sacramento. Went to Sac State for a little while, Sac City, Sac this, Sac that, all of the Sacs in my college career.
What about Old Sac?
A lot of Old Sac, for sure. But yeah, so we were just talking about how fortunate you guys were to have this movie largely in the can as the pandemic struck, because good luck getting anything. Even indie films are struggling to do this stuff well. Do you guys have anything in production at all right now, like in some mid-stage of production?
Well, let me just tell you the last 4 months. We released Apparition in January, which is out on all kinds of formats. We released Ballbuster, which just came out a few days ago.
Right.
We sold Fear Farm, which is going to be coming out in September, Mark. In September.
September, both on all video platforms, and later in September on DVD, Blu-ray. And it's awesome.
And then we have 2 other movies that we have: the MMA true story about Nick Newell that we just sold. And we also have a movie called 616, which is a paranormal thriller. So we really stacked up the movies in production. We kind of I felt like overworked ourselves a little bit, because in the last 2 years, Mark and I have produced like 5 films together nonstop.
Wow.
And so we actually needed this time just to slow down and finish everything, because as you know, I'm sure you are familiar with the film business. Making the movie's great, developing it's great, but you got to distribute it and sell it and deliver it. Takes just as long as making the movie. So there's a lot of follow-up that you have to do, especially when you're an independent producer and you don't have studio huge budgets to hire people to do those things. Mark and I are involved every day. And I told Mark our number 1 goal right now is to finish every single movie we have. Not to mention we have a sequel, Fear Farm 2, that is already shot, and we're about 2 weeks away from finishing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So 2 weeks away from finishing that one. And just going back to the indie side of things, you're right. Like, I mean, first off, how the heck do you afford someone like Jerry O'Connell and all these other big name people that you get? Are you guys good arm twisters, or what is it that allows you to get these well-named people?
That guy's a very good arm twister right there.
I like to say I'm a good beggar. So these actors, what I have found, because since day one, I've tried to negotiate my own deals with the bigger agencies, William Morris's, the CAAs of the world, and it was very, very challenging. What I've learned was that people want to act, it's the freaking gatekeepers that prevent that, because they look at it when you call up, the first thing they say is, hey, what's my commission going to be on something? So they say, how much? And then they want to know if you have the money. They don't really care about the material as much. So what I always try and do is make sure the material is given to the actor in some way, even if I have to be a little bit naughty and deliver it behind their back. So that way when they call the agent, they can't say, I never got that. The actor already has it, read it, and liked it. So I have those kind of contacts, and so does Mark, to kind of circumvent the system at times, even though you're not supposed to do that. And I don't recommend it for everybody, but I like to think that's my specialty.
I'll give you an example to follow up on what Howard just said about how agents, love them, hate them. They're a part that you have to deal with, how they sometimes get in the way. We had a snag in the road in trying to get Jerry O'Connell signed on to do this. Yeah. The manager called and was talking very specifically about trailer demands, the width, the number of bedrooms, the pop outs, the accoutrement, the heating, the LCD screen size. And we said, no, you don't understand. We're not that kind of movie. We just can't afford that kind of accommodations for Jerry, not to mention the fact that he's going to be housed pretty much feet away from where he's going to be shooting at almost any given time. And it turns out that the agent had it all wrong. Jerry was actually offering his own personal trailer just to give us for the run of the show. He wasn't making a demand.
Yeah.
Agents.
Yeah. I mean, God bless agents. They make things happen. But you're right. The reason why you can't just go straight to people is because there's agents and they want to protect their business. We've had Mark Pellington on the show a couple of times. He directs movies. He directed a zillion music videos as well. He made Arlington Road, if you haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah. Good movie.
And he does the same thing. He's like, if you go find actors, anybody, and you say, hey, what are you doing after Thanksgiving before Christmas? They'll say, waiting for you to tell me to make a movie, and he gets these incredible people for budget prices because he can make his movie quickly and get it out the door, which again makes everything down the road easier because you got a good name attached. You didn't spend $150 million on it, and he can reliably make things that he writes or is excited about.
Yeah. I learned, part of the reason Mark and I became partners is because after I produced Mother's Day, we had an array of superstars on there. We had Julia Roberts and Jennifer Aniston. And I'll never forget, I walked on the set one day and I said, thinking this would be a great thing to do, I said to the transportation department, there was literally like 8 guys sitting around a fire, just smoking cigarettes, screwing off. And I said, hey, can someone go pick up Julia at the airport in Atlanta? And they said, oh, we're on break. And I said, all 7, who the hell turns down an opportunity to pick up Julia Roberts, first of all? Right. And I said, you should be paying me. But I said, this is bullshit. So I just took the van keys and picked her up myself. And you're obviously not supposed to do that, but it's always about, and Mark can attest to this, my philosophy is always do what's best for the movie, regardless of your thoughts or the way your union contract structured. You got to do what's best for the movie. So that's kind of I try to toe that line, and that kind of guides me on making films. It's a simple way to do it. And I ask everybody that comes up to me with a suggestion, I say, is this better for the movie? And if it's not, I say, then we can't do it. If it is, then Mark and I talk about it, and then we proceed.
It's weird that it's bad. It's weird that it's bad to pick up Julia Roberts from the airport. I mean, your guys' title is producer. And when everybody else looks around and goes, oh, like you go into produce mode. I'm going to produce Julia Roberts here on the movie set. Right, wrong. My job is to make this thing.
I remember the first time I invited Mark to a movie set, we had a problem that nobody wanted to get. It was like 4:00 in the morning on the Apparition set. And this was Mark's first time on a movie set. He's been on a lot of movie sets to interview, but not as kind of I was kind of mentoring him how to produce. And nobody wanted to get their feet wet and have footsteps down the hallway that looked like a ghost that got their feet wet. Yeah. Next thing I know, there's Mark with his jeans rolled up at 4:00 in the morning, and he's got to get up in an hour because he does a morning show. And there he is doing the footsteps. And I said, see? He gets it, man. And then
not to mention the fact that, like, you want to talk COVID. Imagine the kind of guano and et cetera debris that was on that floor. I don't know if I do it today, Howard. but I'm glad I did.
Oh, you're too good now. I see how it is.
Yeah.
No, the world. I'm more frightened of germs now.
How are you guys holding up with all the COVID thing? Are you guys, how are you doing?
Mark?
Best as can be. Like I was saying, when Howard was jumping on, something that he and I talk about all the time. I hate what the world's going through right now. We hate the condition that people are in. We hate that people are shut-ins in the world now. But we feel really blessed that we have this product that can give them, delightful distraction in the form of Ballbuster during this time. We don't, for a moment, take for granted that we sit in a really good place where we have all of this product that we can unleash on the world to entertain.
Yeah, I just, I feel bad that people are suffering, especially people that had borderline mental health issues. This is the worst thing that could happen, being isolated for a lot of people. What I tell my family is, as corny as it sounds, you could look at this two ways. You could look at it as poor me, or you could look at it as a time to actually slow down. You wish people have good health, but also slow it down a bit. And Mark will tell you, I'm the first one to get on him when I think he doesn't have a lot of balance. And I'm like, Mark, you're working way too much. You're not taking care of yourself. I'm like his work husband because I care about his welfare. And so he's working too hard. So I just try and be positive. I look at time to kind of slow down. We needed time to fix everything. I get to spend more time with my daughter who's in high school, even though I have to bribe her to go to Starbucks every day. So we spend some quality time together. And my wife and I are spending more time together because I'm at home. So I actually am just trying to make the best out of a terrible situation that was bestowed upon us. And at the end of the day, I tell one of my friends in the business is Wayne Rice. Wayne has produced like 20 movies. Dude, Where's My Job? Valentine's Day. And we produced Criminal Activities with John Travolta together. And he's mentored me a lot. And he is an intense movie maker, man. That dude will work 20 hours a day. And I remember one day on the set, he blew up because we had Michael Pitt on and he was being a complete brat. And I looked at Wayne and I said, and he was like, his veins were popping. He was very upset. And I said, Wayne, it's just a movie. And he just looked at me like, holy shit, you're right, man. Let me get my perspective back on this thing. And so he always tells me that's something that I always taught him, is that keep things in perspective.
That's such a great point. I'm a combat veteran. I've got many, many times outside of the wire, and
thanks for your service.
I would still thanks. I would stay, and the units would rotate when I would stay there. So I became like an expert in the area, and because I knew everybody, it really mattered. And so I would see the unit like building up their energy almost at a certain same time every year, and I would just say, "Hey, listen, there's going to be war tomorrow. Like this is not going to be over. So chill out." Relax, slow down. Let's get more things right, because you're right. Like it's just, it is just a movie. When you boil it down to it, everybody's alive. Everybody's coming back to work tomorrow. It's still going to be a movie tomorrow, and you can go forward. But that takes some wisdom and some calm in the storm. Mark, is that your style as well?
I don't know. Howard might be able to speak to that. I think I get worked up about some things on an excited frenzy level. Like I've never got, when it hits the fan and all is falling apart, I feel quite comfortable, because in live broadcast, which has been the bulk of my life, there's always something falling apart, and you're in that boiler room situation where it's live TV, you got to adjust. So I've always felt comfortable when things are going wrong on the set. And like Howard and I talk about, the ship is always sinking. Your job is just to keep bailing water out of it until you get to the other side. That's producing. And so I think I've stayed calm in that way. Howard will say sometimes I get excited and he needs to calm me down so that I can focus. Like there was a time I was thrown into a directing situation and I was ill prepared and I was levitating. I was so excited. And he was like, breathe, Mark, breathe.
Yeah, that's good to have Mark around, like Howard around to do that for you, Mark. It's interesting how we respond to those kind of stressful situations, because the reality is you are prepared. Maybe not specifically prepared for that exact moment, but you've got a lifetime of experience in media, to really prepare you for anything. You've seen that situation before, just from a different perspective.
Well, you're used to duct taping things together and getting it, making sure that you make day is just like making sure you make the broadcast. What impressed me is how Howard can stay meticulously organized during times like that. Howard is the greatest Uber producer the world has ever seen. I want to see him go back to $30 million budgets.
Is that what you want to do, Howard?
Not really. I learned early. You're going to laugh at this, but do you know what the key to producing movies is?
Producing the movie? I don't know. Tell me.
You'll never hear this. You'll never hear it from any. You look up every film school that you're paying $250,000 to $500,000 to do, and you're betting on the fact that you're Steven Spielberg, and they're teaching you when you get your movie, you're going to shop it at studios, and they're going to green light it. Even the shows on HBO are called green light. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, think of you're a studio head. You're not walking in unless you're Spielberg or Christopher Nolan getting something green lighted at Universal or 21st Century. Maybe Netflix, if that, but Netflix is the same thing. They're giving big time producers. So the number one key to producing, if you want to make your own movies, is fundraising. And it's a dirty word nobody wants to hear about. Nobody's good at it, and nobody wants to do it. And that's why people talk year after year of saying, I'm going to make a movie. I'm going to make a movie. And they never frickin' do it because they don't realize part of making a movie is to, once you start have to relying, and I think if anything, Mark has learned on this journey through hiring different people that we didn't have control over. And I don't mean unhealthy control, but for instance, you hire a writer, they're in WGA. They can literally hand you a piece of shit and go, we met our deadline, you owe us $50,000.
Right.
You lose complete control over what that script is going to look like, the quality of the script. So unless you control the product, so Mark and I have even taken to the next level where we just write our own scripts and hire directors that have their vision, that put their spin on it. And we raise our own money. So we own 100% of the movie. So for instance, on Ballbuster, the movie was really supposed to be about my travels with the Harlem Globetrotters playing on the team they play against, the Generals. Okay, so if you're on the road in other countries and your job only takes 3 hours a day, you are going to be partying a lot in your off time. So when I talked about some of the scenarios, and Mark was on the call with me with the Globetrotters and the Generals, they said, oh, no, this movie has to be PG. We have an image. And I said, have you ever been on a bus with 30 drunk people? It's not PG. The adventures are not PG. And so I said, Mark, after that call, I said, thank you, but no thanks for the ultimatum. We'll go raise the money ourselves and make the movie we want. So we went out and have you seen the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So you could see the stuff we have in the movie, you probably couldn't get away with most studios or the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. So we just renamed everything and shot the movie. We were on the set and I would, like, for instance, in the scene where Smegman, who's the commissioner, is bawling out Jerry O'Connell, we had the people protesting in the background. So I said, hey, why don't we have a guy put his ass against the glass? And everybody's like, what? And I said, Mark, go out there and offer somebody $50 and get a release for the guy's ass and tell him to squeeze it when Smegman's pointing out the window. I want the ass to be there. You imagine running that up 10 executives today? They go, hell no, you couldn't.
I'm offended already.
So I said, let's Mark, I want someone throwing a giant dildo at Jerry O'Connell. Like, you think people are going to let us do that? No. Not to transgress, but one of the funniest stories of the movie is, God bless Mark. He's a super entertainer, but he self-confessed he's not the most. He's not a triathlete. Let's put it that way. So I said, Mark. True. I said, Mark, whatever you do not. This is a huge, 15-inch thick black dildo. Do not hit Jerry in any body part when you throw it at him from the stands. The first take, I see this thing sailing in the air and smacks Jerry in the side of the head.
All you had to do is say, Mark, make sure it hits Jerry, and he would have been safe.
Never would have been near him.
And it almost knocked him out. And Jerry wasn't even acting. He was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" You could see him shaking his head. He had freaking concussion but you could see we had really fun with it, and we took it to the next level. And that's what I'm saying. When you raise your own money, you control your own destiny. The problem is there's no fun in fundraising, as I like to say.
I want to get back to fundraising in a second, but I want to bring up the point. I think it's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie's movie. Doesn't the guy get to death with some dildos too? It's like you guys and Guy Ritchie. That's it. The only ones.
We didn't have that in mind. We were not plagiarizing that moment.
No, right. But you're in a small club, you know.
Well, actually, I got that idea because I was watching the Detroit Lions football game, and the running back scored a touchdown. Someone threw a giant dildo at him on live TV. It ran in the end zone, and they literally stopped the game and they gathered around, and two people in a hazmat suit, it's on YouTube, had to come out and remove it. So that was kind of my inspiration. I always thought that was so funny.
Yeah, there goes art imitating life right there.
Yeah.
The fundraising thing is it's important. Shit. Stand by for a second. Had a little catastrophe with the equipment there. Sure. Fundraising, the act of doing that, it's hard. And like, you know, you could, obviously you didn't do this, but you could go in and say, hey, I've got this great actor, former fat kid actor turned failed lawyer who's been in a few good things, married to a really pretty lady. He's going to do my movie. I mean, that's just a terrible way. I couldn't raise any money at all. And also, we're going to make a basketball movie where there's dildos flying from the crowds. But that's not what you. Huh?
I didn't guess.
But how do you do that, though? I mean, how do you, like, everybody works on explaining their movie and the slug line and all that. Everybody is trying to be great at that. So how do you stand out and get that $1 million check or that $10 million check or whatever it is?
Well, I think you have to separate. You know, like my wife is a very creative person, so she has her own advertising agency. Most people that are in film do not really have the business mind because that's not really their focus. It's more creative. My background is I was a national sales trainer for Comcast. So I told Mark, we're going to treat this as a professional sales presentation. So it's really simple. Is the first thing is we make a fantastic presentation filled with facts. We sell the sexiness. We do a little trailer. We do make fun things. For this amount of money, you could be in the film. For this amount of money, you could have a small speaking part. For this amount of money, you could be executive producer. But more importantly, what we do, and then we have a professional contact list. Most salespeople would call that a prospect list because it's very hard to make a cold call. A cold call is me calling you not knowing me, and go, hey, would you like to, I have this project. Can I borrow a few minutes of your time? And you're just like, this is like, what are you from, like the Philippines or something?
It just happens. I've been waiting to meet a man named Howard who needed a lot of money today. Yes, right. Please continue.
Days, lucky day.
As opposed to somebody saying, hey, why don't you call Jim? Tell him Mark said it was to go ahead and talk to him about investing. And I'd say, well, Mark, do me a favor. First call him and just say, hey, are you interested about possibly investing in a film? I'm involved. I'm legit. So Mark knows this guy. So now it's a warm call. Mark warmed him up. I call him, set up a meeting. And it goes back to simple, basic sales. I propose and present. And my sales style is a little different. I always teach people to be an active listener. So you're a detective. Once you uncover what's important to that potential investor, then you match your part of the proposal to what he said. So logically, at the end of the proposal, when you ask him for the money, it's hard to say no to basically, because you've already, like good lawyers do, you've uncovered, he already told you that he would do it if you give X, X, and X. But then it's my responsibility or Mark's responsibility to match X, X, and X with the X, X, and X of our proposal. And then ask. And if he says no, then I say, well, maybe I'm missing something because I thought you mentioned you wanted to be an extra in a movie and $100,000 was your comfort zone. So right here, I'm giving you an extra in a movie. and I'm only asking you for $100,000. What am I missing?
Yeah.
And then you just shut up. And then then that means you didn't really uncover the true objection. So they might say, well, I also wanted to be a producer on it. Okay. So what you're saying is if you're an extra and a producer, you'll invest $100,000. Yeah. Okay. And then you say, okay, here's the agreement. I'm making you a producer and the other thing, and can I have $100,000? So you're really a professional salesperson. And that's been my personal edge over anybody in this business. Is I've raised money on 10 films by myself. And Mark and I have taken all the bullshit meetings about overseas money and China and Dubai, and it's just all bull crap. If you don't roll up your sleeves and do it yourselves, you're never going to make the movie. That's my opinion. Unless you're a big time director that Mark has been in a lot of their sets and they throw 20, 30, $100 million at you, fine. But there's no way in this day and age, Netflix or anybody's going to risk millions of dollars on someone that's not proven as a producer. There's no way. So the future of this business is, if you can't fundraise, you're not making the movie. That's just.
And then we layer, as I was going to say, we layer on top of that brand and reputation, because all of this would be for naught if we took that money and then didn't do what we say we were going to do. But Howard and I have always done exactly what we said we're going to do: make the best possible movie and put every dollar on screen. Case in point, Apparition, we had an editor doing daily edits so that we had at least a rough cut to look at when the film was over. And it was looking so good before the film even wrapped that the person, one of the entities that came on for that film, said, "What else do you have?" And that's how Howard and his other producing partner were able to fund Notorious Nick. In the middle of Notorious Nick, they were doing exactly what they said they were going to do: make a beautiful movie with MMA as a backdrop. And they said, "What else you got?" And that's how Ballbuster came to be, and so forth and so on.
And Mark's got a good point. What we can't do, and we make very clear in the investment contract, that this is risky as hell. You probably will not get your money back, because it's not. You're hiring Mark and I to make a movie and then exploit it for the best possible way economically. So, because what happens, I don't know if you've ever seen a distribution statement. So like one of our distribution statements we got recently, the movie in 2 months made $190,000. But by the time Walmart had their order of 15,000 DVDs and a 25% reserve and a 40% commission, the investors got back 10 grand of the 190. So we are very careful to say, we do not guarantee you're getting your money back. This is very risky, which also brings me to the point of, when you're getting investors, make sure they clearly understand the risks of this. And more importantly, I and myself and Mark always ask, look, I got to be honest with you. Is this your last? Are you going to lose sleep if you lose this money? And if they say, yeah, we don't take the money, because we do not want to do that to people. This is a fun investment. If it makes money, great. If it doesn't, you're going to write it off and you're going to have a great experience. But by no means are we promising. The only mistake that Mark and I have ever made with investors is one investor, and I'll just be real honest with you, so maybe someone can learn from this. They wanted to be, I didn't really understand how involved as a producer they wanted to be, when I've never let any investors be an active producer, like on the set giving input. Right. But for some reason, this investor was brought in and I didn't bring them in. And I did not understand their expectations clearly until after the fact, which was kind of too late. But that's a lesson that I learned, is clearly understanding, whether they come from me or somebody else, what is their realistic expectation? Because I would have told that person, no, you're not going to be in active meetings. You're not coming to this. You're not deciding on distribution. It's just, you're investing in the movie. You could come on the set 1 or 2 days. You could be an extra in the movie. But, understanding who your investor is very, very important. And in film school, I think people are just oblivious to not dealing with the elephant in the room, which is, who's paying for all this shit?
Right. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And and what do they expect to get back? Yeah. I mean, that whole thing of like, are you going to lose sleep on this? Is this your last $100,000? Is this your one big swing in this? Like, it's really risky. Like you said, it's super risky. Super risky.
Like I said, it's a movie. I don't want to ruin someone's life over their life savings. I don't recommend it, nor am I greedy enough, and nor is Mark, to take their last dollar to make a movie. It's just not worth it to me. It's a personal choice.
Yeah. But that's your only one mistake is not laying out the expectation. Surely there's another mistake as a producer that you made. You're like, this is a dumb one. I should have made this change a long time ago.
Oh my God. Let me just tell you this. Every day, that's how, unfortunately in life, that's how you learn, is by making mistakes. What Mark and I try and do is keep them to a minimum. But yeah, if you're not out there rolling up your sleeves and doing it and making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
And you're not learning hard enough either, I would say.
Right.
But the good news is, as we progress, we learn from it. And what's great about Mark and I is we're so on top of the market, where you go on the internet, you search how to be a producer. You'll find people that write classes, and then you look up their IMDb's, they've never produced a movie. They've been like a line producer. So they have no idea how to take it from start to finish. And these are the people teaching people how to make films. Mark and I are on the lines. Our next film is because we're saying now, okay, how are we comfortable with COVID? How moving forward can we make movies? And and so Mark and I, our next project is going to be a movie that involves a ventriloquist relationship. So that's a freaking great idea, because the actor can't get COVID because he's a dummy.
Right.
And what about the dummy? No, I'm just joking.
It might have COVID, and then it's passed around.
But we're so lean and mean that we're not a giant studio that has to. By the time they slow down and figure things out, it's on to something different in movie making.
No, so I love that. Yeah,
we're quick and we can adjust, and we know the right price, and we know how to get actors, and we reverse engineer films. So, for instance, with Jerry O'Connell, if he would have cost us $1 million, we wouldn't have done the movie, because we know he wouldn't return to us 5 times that. So there's always the smart formula of reverse engineering a movie and making sure it's not only the right budget, but what the actors mean and how much they cost. The thing that's challenging for me, and Mark won't do that because he's more politically savvy than me, but the unions really piss me off because they make it hard to hire SAG actors, to hire WGA. Like, for instance, SAG, they took on a small little movie, after we paid all their people, they demanded $25,000 up front of residuals on a tiny movie before anybody got paid on the back end, where they could have easily said, we want 3% of the profits to go to residuals. They were greedy during COVID, and they took the entire 24 grand. Now, Mark's not going to say anything bad about him because he's in the business, but I just think that that's not teamwork. That's being a selfish bully on the block. And so you see a lot of unions doing that crap.
Well, it makes you want to go full indie on them and just bypass all that, because there's people that want to take a shot and that will stick their neck out. And, if I get COVID, whatever, I need to work. And all of a sudden,
we would take every step to protect them. But
of course,
it's like, for instance, WGA, I hired 2 female writers to write a great movie with a very famous producer, and they turned in a piece of crap. And we said, we're not paying you for this piece of crap. And their agent called my other partner and I and said, no, it says in the WGA, they turned something to you on the deadline and you owe them this money. And I said, so if I go to a restaurant and I have a $100 steak and they give me an egg because they gave me an egg instead of a steak, I have to pay for it? And they said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. So that's just how it is. They're more concerned. That's why they have these giant buildings in Beverly Hills. Somebody's got to pay for them.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
True.
I mean, and there is I guess there's a time and place. If you have the budget, the time, and the luxury of having just infinite pockets, then by all means, engage the unions. But if you have a story and you want to tell it well, but you only have a finite amount of time to do it, then sometimes you have to sidestep all of that and just make the movie. And in the case of, at least 4 of our films, we've done that, and you can't tell the difference. They're just as good as any other film engaging every union.
Well, for instance, on Ballbuster, we did something brilliant. We actually went to an old Air Force base that's privately owned, and we went to the owner and said, look, you have a movie studio here. You have an airport, and you've got limos and medical buildings and housing and gyms and stadiums. I said, what do you say we partner up? Meaning, let me use all your shit and we're not going to pay you. And they have a hotel too. And we basically we have a movie now, and Mark is very well connected in Sacramento. He got us the use of Golden One Arena, which is a $2 billion arena to shoot the movie in. And we have this movie that looks like a $10 million movie that we didn't make for $10 million because we were smart filmmakers and thought big and had the nuts to ask people for stuff that we had no business asking for.
I love letting people have the chance to give them a chance to fail you. That's fine. Don't assume they're going to do that. Just ask. And if they say no, okay, great. But give them that chance.
I tell my daughter,
I'd like to point out,
you don't ask yet.
We had these hallowed grounds that, were there for all of these major wars protecting America. And we said, we want to bring the likes of this and make this happen. Air Force Base. You'll have to watch the movie to understand what that's about.
Yeah.
Are you going to answer questions that people are writing in? I see a great question I'd love to respond to.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead and take that question.
So Howard, Todd is asking, Pete and I have some veteran friends in the business. How is it working with veterans? Are they harder or easier to work with? I can speak to this because Howard and I have a unit production manager that we've used through several films. That's one of Howard's best friends, a guy named Rich, who now is pretty much just 2 tiers under a general. Having this guy on the set, seeing his organizational skills, and you want to talk about working under pressure, I would say it's been to our advantage anytime we can get a veteran on our set, and Howard can speak more to Rich's ability.
Honestly, I love working with veterans. I appreciate their service, but they are so first of all, I had to learn what the hell what he was talking about in terms of time and vectoring in. And so I had to get out my military app and go, hold on, Rich, what vector in? What the hell is that?
Yes.
Vector in at 2,300.
So he was so organized. And the thing that I loved about him more than anything is if he said something, it was going to get done.
Nice.
And having that person on the set is unbelievably, as much as you think it's a common occurrence, it simply is a white elephant. It's hard to find people that you can 100% count on and give you the extra hustle. So military people are fantastic. I encourage hiring them above all. And they're just wonderful people to work with. And their discipline is just amazing in their work ethic.
They're also easier to lead because they've led, right? Substantially been trained in it. So like when you guys are the producer and it's late and we've been delayed, and you said we're gonna get these next shots. It's gonna take us 4 hours to set the lighting, everything else. They're one of the first people to go, okay, it sucks. Yes, we're gonna be up all night. You put in a dip, you grab a Gatorade, you go see Crafty and you get some red vines, whatever it is, and then you get back to fucking work because the boss says we're gonna do this thing. And it needs to get done no matter what. And that's a direction that isn't common and there's no knock on civilian folks. There's plenty of civilian folks that will do that. But I've been there. Come back from a patrol, you are exhausted. All you want to do is take a nap, get a shower, get some food. And they're like, you have to go right back out. And you just look at the commander and go, yep, let's go. And you do it, you go. And that's not taught. That kind of adversity and that kind of, get it done attitude. That isn't common to find. You have to build that in yourself.
Something that people don't really equate with producing, and I take a step back and think about this all the time. Is like you said, you had a commander. So I personally have a leadership philosophy of not yelling and screaming because I've been on a lot of sets where there's a lot of yelling and screaming. So the number one thing that I always tell Mark and we abide by is if you have an issue with anybody, it's a sidebar. You take them outside. You never embarrass people. You take them outside and you have a discussion. But as a leader, I personally try and connect with everybody. So I'll be the guy in the morning that will go into the hair and makeup. Just a simple, how you doing? Can I get you anything? Because I look at it. So even like at lunchtime, Mark and I will sit. I say, let's not try and have a little elite group with the 2 producers and the director. Let's have lunch with different people.
That's cool. Yeah.
And more importantly, let's show appreciation. So Mark and I will go buy some gift cards and we'll have like trivia contests. While respecting their lunch, it'll take like 2 minutes. But then every day what's kind of cool is we bring out like some kind of trinket, a watch, and it will be like the hustle of the day club. So we'll award it to somebody that did the extra hustle. So throughout every day we change that up. So we try and create a culture of unity, even though it's very hard to bond on a 10, 15-day shoot. We at least make sure we're approachable, and we also make sure we have a talk up front about respecting each other with not only the Me Too movement, just as individuals. And, because I don't know if you've been on a movie set sometimes, but sometimes it's like freaking band camp. Everybody's just they're all trying to hump each other.
So, Wait, what set were you on?
Can I come to a set, please? I'd like to come to a shoot.
I swear it's like sheep, man. It's like hurting the sheep. So you want to do it kindly, but you have to deal with a lot of bullshit too. But
I never get to talk about this guy enough, and I want to bring up the fact that you got Bobby Slayton in this movie. Now, Bobby seems to play one part, the deliverer of truth. That seems to be his thing. Yeah. But goddamn, thank you so much for putting him on the show. He plays Sacramento all the time. He's played probably 1,000 times in his life. Yeah.
I got a great story. I met Bobby years ago, early in my career. Hold on, I gotta check something.
Was he playing Laughs Unlimited?
Yeah. No, it was actually okay. So I'm in. All right, so I'm on Comedy Central. I'm hosting a show called Short Attention Span Theater, and I'm the last guy that should be doing the show. But I got the gig, and so I took it. Moved to New York. I'm hosting it. I'm on live TV. It's day 3, Wednesday. I remember like it was yesterday. And they say, we got this guy, Bobby Slayton. He's known as the Pitbull of comedy. I had never heard of him before in my life until that day. And he came on the show and he goes, so we're 30 seconds away from being on live TV doing a segment. So you're from Sacramento, right? Yeah. I play there all the time. Your ex, her name's blank. Well, yes, that is my ex. He goes, oh, yeah, I heard that one really hurt when you guys broke up, right? Yeah, I did. He goes, well, I banged her last night. And you're on in 3, 2, 1, boom. And that's me with Bobby Slayton, my very first time meeting him. And subsequently, I bumped into him again. And I said, Howard, what would you think about this casting choice? And Howard was instantly said, yes, relentlessly, yes, we're going to make this happen. And Howard did an interview with them on the phone. They seemed to hit it off, and the rest you see is history.
I love your local Sacramento media joke too, because it takes me. I don't have to mention Kim Khazei. God, I hope she's not your ex. But it's like just the funny the names from KCRA and those other channels and everything. It's hilarious, man. I love it. Wow, I hadn't thought of her in a long, long time. And by the way, that's not the person that's the subject of this story. Thanks. Just in case an attorney's going, yeah, we'll take care of that. Yeah. That's not the person. Right. Bobby Slayton, Howard, talk about it.
I saw him at the Punchline. And so he always stuck with me. And it's probably like 10 years ago. So when Mark approached me about Bobby Slayton, and by the way, Mark has so many wonderful contacts that he probably can make a living just on casting films. And Mark is the guy that always has the guy. So he's gotten us the Mark DiCarlos, the Mike Winfields of this movie. He was unbelievable in casting everybody. But I just think Bobby was hilarious. And I wanted Bobby to play it loose and he kind of like a tough New Yorker guy. And I thought he did a marvelous job. He came in for a few days and knocked it out. And he was just a pleasure to have on the set.
What shocked me about Bobby, and Howard, tell me if this is true for you too, is that here's this guy that he is the Pitbull of comedy. And now having seen his act, like I see why they call him that. He's relentless, he's fierce, and he's wicked smart and tight. But he was nervous on our set. Like once you flip him into saying someone else's words and acting, he was very nervous. He wanted his space. He was very quiet and focused. It was odd to see him in that way.
Yeah.
I love when Bobby Slayton's in movies because I go, hey, there's Bobby Slayton. And I really don't care if he does a great job acting. I just love what he does so much. But then he always is a pro. He does his job exactly right. Even if he's just kind of playing a Bobby Slayton-esque guy, I love when I saw him, the movie made a positive turn for me just because I love that guy so much. And I can't wait to see him next time he's in a movie. I love the hell out of him.
We would definitely use him again.
I want to talk a little bit more about the movie. So you used to play for the Washington Generals. Did you ever get to win a game? I have to ask you that first.
Never,
no.
because I'll tell you why. In the contract you sign that whenever they call a show play, you legally have to let them score. So we could be shooting 70% that night, and they'll call 10 show plays in a row and win the game.
Yeah.
So, which is funny because, well, I'll tell you why that's important, because all of my teammates on the Generals were ex-Division I college players. So when you're Division I college players, you are trained like to be a pit bull of basketball. It's all about winning, and it's a business, and they're paying you through a scholarship to be there. So all of a sudden you go from that to having let people dunk on you and pull down your pants and score. That's a lot of people couldn't make that adjustment. What I explained to them is, look, you get to travel around the world, and they're paying you to do this. And all you got to do is go out and be part of a show and play a little offense and zero defense. I said, it's my basketball dream. I fucking
But the Generals did get to win on occasion. How the heck did that ever happen?
The only time they won is when they had like Kareem Jabbar was or I think it was Wilt or Kareem played once or twice, and that's how they won. But he didn't listen to the rules because he didn't care. So they'd go in and he just blocked their shot. Because this is a living for a lot of people, so they couldn't break the rules and get kicked off the tour. So when they had that come in, he leaned the game so then the Generals can win.
How's Jerry's game?
I have to say,
as good as mine.
That was the biggest challenge, is making a basketball movie. And Jerry was very honest and said, I'm not very good at basketball. So that's why we didn't have a lot of Jerry playing basketball, because he's just not a very good basketball player. So, but that's okay. We got away with it by really focusing on the comedy and the bits and but as the movie went on, Jerry got a lot better at playing basketball. I'll say that. He was very improved. The thing that I absolutely love about Jerry is his professionalism. The shit we made him do. I cried every Sunday because we let Jerry leave the set and go visit his wife every weekend. Sacramento to LA is like a 6-hour drive. I asked Mark every Monday, the first question I had, did Jerry come back? Did Jerry come back?
Right.
And he did every week, man. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I don't even know if I would come back.
Yeah, we would ask him to do stuff, and I thought, this is going to be the day that he suddenly has no memory of that being in the script. And everything that we threw at him, he said, yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Mark, tell me about the DeCarlo's joke on him.
Yeah. So there's a scene in the movie, you've seen the movie, where he has to do some wire work, where he's suspended, and it's only a moment in time in the movie, but it took a half day to shoot the thing. And the very first time we have him up there, 100 feet perched off of Golden One Center, Mark DeCarlo goes, okay, that's lunch, everybody, making a DeCarlo joke. But half the cast and crew got up and started walking out. Jerry's just up there, guys, I'm still up here. Yeah, he was a great guy that way. When Howard was talking about making him look good as a basketball player, Howard sent our local casting director on the hunt to find people that were good at basketball, and she found a guy that used to be a Washington General. So you'll see this guy that plays balls in the movie. He actually was a Washington General, and we tried to put him in front of Jerry in any basketball scene.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, Ted Danson never threw a ball once on Cheers when he was, Sam Mayday Malone. He just was always offset because he could not throw a ball at all. It's
That's right. He was the ex-baseball player.
Right. Yeah, you can see when Jerry grabbed the ball, just how he grabbed it. As someone who's played basketball a little bit, like, oh, okay. And that's why I wanted to ask that, because does it drive you crazy, or do you just trust in? You had Tom Hines directing the movie. Do you just trust in his ability to cover that? Because a former basketball, former volleyball, all these kind of players, they can't do things like pick up basketball and beach volleyball because it's just too painful.
Yeah, honestly, Mark and I were always on the set, so we would make sure those were always shot correctly, and Tommy we would relay our vision to Tommy, and Tommy would relay it to Jerry. Sometimes begrudgingly, but he would still do it.
What are you guys writing right now?
Well, it happens to be the suspense horror. Our influences, movies that we loved as kids. Spinning through a list of movies we love. Howard was talking about Soylent Green, and from a smidgen of the notion of Soylent Green, which is a dated reference lost on most younger viewers, became this very youthful-oriented movie that we made called Fear Farm. And I'll just say, I'll leave it at that. We're on the tip right now with the movie Magic of taking that spark and making it into a millennial-friendly, lovely little horror thriller that involves a psychotic dummy.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Whenever I try to imitate Dennis Miller, I always use, that movie, taking Burgee Meredith on a swim across the lake, kind of thing. It's hilarious. It's so magic.
That's right.
That's good. Do you guys remember the movie Kenny and Company? I always want to see a modern version of that.
What was that about?
It was a bunch of kids around Halloween, and they're just rambunctious 70s era kid. Like, they're not paying attention to the rules, and they smash things, and they get shot a shotgun with salt in it. It's all kinds of things. I'm not describing it very well, but it's one of those great movies that you watch as a kid, and you're like, that's what I want to. Like, I want to go crazy in town during Halloween, kind of thing. So
right,
that would be the one I'd want to do. So the movie is called Ballbuster. And give us a little quick wrap up, like on what it's about, so folks can go. Or is Voodoo the place you guys want folks to go to get it, or what's best for you guys?
Amazon Prime, Voodoo,
Amazon Prime,
Redbox, Fandango,
anywhere,
wherever they get movies, they'll get it.
Hulu, Comcast, Consolidated, anywhere, they'll get it. Honestly, I was searching the other day for something to watch, and so many of these movies now are coming from overseas because we have simply ran out of content. So Ballbuster, I'd say, to wrap it up, is just a really fun, don't take it too seriously. We know we're not going to get a nomination for the best picture, but it's super, super entertaining and funny. And it will really just kind of take your mind off the world, and you'll be transferred to a world of silliness and laughter. But the nice thing is it's got heart into it too. So we wanted to make it not just a dude's movie. It also has a great relationship story arc between Jerry and his daughter, who we all know we could get caught up in our career and not really pay attention and take that for granted. And if you're not too careful, you could lose it. So that kind of takes Jerry's arc, is he as a father is also failing besides as just a basketball player. So we marry the two to have a heartwarming story that is really, really funny. All of our movies, we try and have a soul to it and just not do something that's a shallow, I've already seen this 10 times. We always like that, like even an apparition, instead of we had this beautiful castle that was haunted and told the true story of it, but we created an app. That's why it's called Apparition, that gets the bloodline of the people that wronged the current people that are haunting the house to the house. We try and make our movies very, very fresh. So even in Ballbuster, we married the two of what would happen if an NBA player was such an asshole and the commissioner didn't like him, that he said, hey, man, we've had enough of you. The only way you're getting back into this league is you have to go on this ridiculous tour, and I'm going to personally sabotage it to make sure you never get back into the NBA. And that's why it's silly, is because the commissioner organizes it, for instance, against the abs. He thinks he's playing the abs, like people with great abs and that are physically fit. So he's excited to play the game, and he shows up the next game and he thinks it's abs, and he sees a bunch of adult babies walking around in diapers, and he's like, what the fuck? And they're like, abs. And he's like, abs? I thought it was people in great shape. And he goes, no, abs is ABS, the Adult Baby Society. So all of a sudden, you got this goddamn NBA player playing against the Adult Baby Society, which, by the way, there's millions of people in the Adult Baby Society. It's a thing on the internet. Oh my God. Look it up. There's been shows, Maury Povich, because it's very nurturing for people to go back to their childhood. And so they walk around these diapers and get breastfed and want the milk. And so we really just take a good, without offending them too much, we just kind of embrace that culture, what that would be like playing against them. Especially the halftime contest, the baby race is something you can't miss.
Yes.
And it's a visceral comedy. It's not like the 1-2 punch where you're setting up a joke and then we shave the hamster to look like a lion. It's a visceral comedy that you'll be at a traffic light the next day busting up for the rest of your life over stuff that you've seen in the movie. And with that said, I just looked it up on Redbox front page. Ballbuster right there happens to be underneath one of my favorite movies of all time, Jaws. So there you go. Ballbuster.
One quick note, I told at the beginning of the movie, it says 83% is true. Mark said to me, Mark, tell him the story how you just did not believe me that these adventures were true.
Well, I assumed things were a little bit inflated for sales purposes. And then I'm on the set and Howard invites friends and family from years gone by to drop by the set. I'm on the set and there's this guy literally convulsing. I thought he was having a seizure. He was laughing so hard. And he said, I remember when that happened. And I'm not going to spoil you by telling you what scene it was, but it's the most bizarre scene of the whole movie. And this guy said, yeah, that's exactly the way it happened, just like that. So I think it's more like 98% true story.
I was trying to go low.
I love it. So knowing that's such a yeah. You guys got to watch this movie. It's called Ballbuster. Get it wherever you watch movies, Amazon Prime, wherever it is. It was funny without knowing that. Now I got to go back and watch it again. Oh, and by the way, great job on casting Flex Anderson. I thought he was fantastic too. That guy he can do anything.
Flex Alexander's a sweetheart, and he and Jerry became best friends on this movie.
They actually would drive home every weekend together.
No kidding. Did you wonder if Flex was coming back too?
Hell yeah. I had to see a therapist for fear of abandonment.
Totally.
Right. Well, we thought he was rescuing people from our set.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, guys. Thanks for being from Sacramento and talking some Sacramento stuff with me. I think all of this stuff is great. I love the movie. Everybody should watch Ballbuster. So go out there and support these guys, support these movie makers that are making just look. It's like when folks complained that Baywatch was a bad movie. It's not supposed to be good. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be entertaining, you know?
Yeah.
And so not that you guys made a bad movie, but it's great to have a movie that isn't so damn serious, doesn't have 45-second long shots of someone walking across the damn screen. I just tell your movie in 90 minutes, entertain me, get the heck out of the way, and you guys did that wonderfully.
We're not trying to make any political commentary. It's just we just want to entertain people.
There you go. You already got one sale. Todd is going to rent it today.
That's right. We just wanted to make a nice movie that everybody could enjoy that occasionally has scenes featuring a 2-foot-long scrotum. Every now and then you get something like that.
And we have a mime in there, by the way.
Say it again?
And a mime and a little person.
Oh, yeah, you had a mime, and it said playing himself. I'm like, I don't even know who that guy is, but I love it.
I just got to tell you one quick story, and then I'll be out. So one of our favorite actors is Kevin Ton, and he's a little person.
I know exactly who he is. Yeah.
So yesterday, Mark and I posted a picture of the dummy we're thinking about using for the ventriloquist movie. And we put Kevin in probably 4 or 5 movies because we love Kevin. And Kevin wrote, "Let me guess who's going to play the double for the dummy."
Well, absolutely not, Kevin. But could we keep you on retainer?
We might need your butt up against the window at a minimum, you know?
Oh, it's funny, man.
All right, fellas, let me turn this thing out. Stand by.